Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy Furious video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to give our 2026 State of the Galaxy. What do I think about the game right now? Analyzing the different game modes and how they're impacting us, and what maybe adjustments I'd love to see or think need to happen in order for this game to get even more successful, retain players who start joining the game, and also retain the aging player base that is here, because every single day there's at least one person who's been playing for a long time that probably sets the game down, and we want to avoid that from happening. And I think there's certain things that Capital Games could do, certain updates that would maybe make that process slow down and allow the player base to continue to, maintain, if not even start to grow with some adjustments. So I'd really love to hear what you guys think. Is there anything that I missed or you think is off the mark? Let me know your thoughts. Let's get in here and let's talk about the state of the galaxy. Alright, so I want to first talk about Colosseum. I actually have come around to Colosseum in the sense that I think it's actually very well built. To a certain extent, I think it's built for success. I actually will die on the hill that I think this game mode is built to last. One of the nice things about it is that the characters are going to rotate, that we're going to get new characters to use inside of Colosseum. Think this era ends, we get new characters. The bosses don't have to change, because with new characters will come new abilities, potentially new strategies that right now, okay, we're starting to get the strategy with these characters, then we're going to have to learn that all again but we understand the bosses. And so I think that could, be really good for the game to give us an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I understand how this works. Here's how this character can beat it. The flip side of that is if they ever do want to introduce new bosses, the best way to do it would be in the middle of an era. So like right now, we have, the characters we have. They release a new boss. What it gives them an opportunity to do is they know the characters that they've released are working as intended, and now they can just tweak the boss. Instead of having to maybe say, okay, with this new era, we're going to release 4 new bosses, and now they've got to figure out, are the bosses working properly? Are the new characters working properly? They know the new characters work, so it's just adjusting the boss to reflect what they want. I think that's a great way that they could move forward with this, and I think that is why I'd say it's kind of built for success long term, that adjusting it is very easy as long as you do it in the way I suggested there. The one thing I will say I don't like, and I've, preached about this for a while, is that I do think their RNG of the kind of bracket you end up in is pretty harsh. For some people, you'd look at mine and say, this is easy. And for others, you'd look at it and be like, what the heck? That is impossible. How are you even, scoring anything in there, Phil? So, it's definitely one of those situations where there's certain areas where you're like, hey, this is, again, and it's not permanent. But there's going to be somebody who will get a bracket every single time that's tough, and others who will get one that's very easy. And that has impacts on your Relic 10 income, which I feel is a bit harsh, right? I've felt that for a while. So again, I just think there's something needs to change with the leaderboard. I'm not sure quite what, but I wonder if maybe some of these currencies need to be added into the box here. So that way, like, hey, I'm at 98% right now. Let's just say I don't get to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they need to move the rewards a little bit to say, well, you earned this, here's the rewards you get, and then depending on where you in the leaderboard. And that way, you're making up for the fact that if you do get to a certain point, you're not getting completely screwed by the leaderboard, by the shard that you're in. Overall, though, I'm much more positive about this than I used to be. I think it has grown on me a little bit. We'll have to see how that continues. The next thing I'd like to kind of bring up is just, GAC, Territory Wars, PvP. I think both of these game modes right now are in a really bad spot. And I think a lot of that has to do with 2 reasons. One is this datacron issue for Pillars of War, where they screwed up datacrons, and now all of us have these ludicrous datacrons with ridiculous amounts of health, ridiculous crit damage and armor penetration. Everybody has the wordy stuff because we have all these reroll materials. Like, it's insane. I think this is a bad space for PvP to be in, especially given Relic Delta. And the reason I say especially given Relic Delta is because a lot of these fights you can't figure out whether the reason you won or lost was because of Delta or because of your Kron, or like there's too much that is like at play right now that is outside the norm that I feel you can't get a good gauge on stuff. And we've had a lot of really ridiculous datacrons in 2025. I mean, a lot of really ridiculous crons that have that always just shift the meta every single time. And I'm not saying that I don't want datacrons to shift the meta, but I would appreciate if it wasn't just a perpetual cycle of like this character almost always has a cron. Like just for frame of reference here, and I'm gonna switch over to my screen capture just to show this, because when I was looking through my GAC history, I was like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. So just fun little fact here, this Ray team that I went up against last round, Relic 10 Ray, Relic 10 Ben, Relic 10 Cal, Relic 10 Ezra, Relic 10 Barris, 118% on the healer crown with 15 and 15. I timed out against Leia. I then lost with Ufus, but I killed Ezra and Cal, and then I used 501st to clean it up. But like, man, that was brutal. But I can't tell you if that was because of Relic Delta or because of the datacron. Like, I don't know. Was it because I didn't bring the right crons? I have no clue because there's too much going on. But I bring this up as, okay, like Ray has this Barris cron. Well, if you just go back to, say, October here, and let's go to round 2. We had the Ray, you had the Jawa cron there, but we also had the unaligned force user cron. Where's she at? Yeah, you had Ray's unaligned force user cron. So now she has the Barris cron that helps her. Then she had her specific cron that was allowing her to gain ultimate charge a lot faster, right? Well, if you go back to, say, was it September? We had the Barris cron again. So you think the past 3 datacron sets that we've had have all had something that benefits Ray, with Barris making her second appearance inside of those. I understand that Capital Games has a methodology of, hey, these are the datacrons we want to have in the game because people spend on them. I understand it. But it does get a bit tiring when the same teams are getting benefits and other teams are kind of not getting anything. You know, we've had 2, datacron cycles in a row where Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has had a very good datacron. So again, I've been very harsh on them a little bit with this. I do feel like I understand that we're running out of characters to create datacrons for. I get it. But I do feel like at times certain teams like Ray are given a lot of crons that benefit her, comparative to, say, someone like Jedi Master Luke, who rarely gets one, or Jedi Master Kenobi. You know, they don't get those crons like Ray's, where it just completely elevates that team into something absolutely obscene. So I think that's part of the reason. And then, of course, Relic Delta. We haven't gotten a good grasp on PvP of how to mitigate Delta and the datacrons, and we won't really get that until this datacron set expires in March. So mid-March, we'll have, depending, and again, we'll probably have some ridiculous sets by then, but we'll maybe have a better understanding of how the game feels with all of these aspects inside of it. The raid, just kind of covering it briefly, I think it's fine. I think the cadence feels good. They did a great job with Order 66 of, at least to an extent, there's a strategy to it. Obviously, there's some RNG teams if you're trying to do undermans or trying to do some cheeses. But I think that is I like that. The spirit of that raid feels good. So I'm okay with the Order 66 raid. I think that's in a good spot. Territory battles. TB, I do think, needs to get some love here in 2026. I do think that it is a situation where it's not really had a material adjustment since Mandalore. And even Mandalore, while it's been really nice, it still is something that for some guilds is not obtainable yet. I've said for a long time, I would like to see a planet get added earlier in the process. I think that would I think part of the issue sometimes that CG kind of shoehorns themselves into is they release something that is so endgame that so many people are like, wow, this is really cool. I can't wait to play it in 3 years. But when you give somebody playable content now, which is what you did with Colosseum, right? Regardless of, how some people feel, this is accessible to like everybody, right? Like you can play this regardless of your level, and you're competing against Fat Phil regardless of your level, of whether you're this dude from Night's Watch with 16 million, or you're this guy with 14, or, this guy with 13, and, we could go on down the line until you find somebody who's got like 8 million GP. I haven't found one yet, but I know there's a couple lurking there. I saw somebody the other day who was far lower GP. Of course, I'm not finding anybody now. There we go. There's 12. But, you get the point I'm making. They need to give something in territory battles that people can work towards now. And I think that would be much more beneficial long-term health for the game, rather than throwing a bonus planet in like phase 5 or phase 6. Throw one a lot earlier in like phase 1 or 2, where more guilds can feel like they can participate in that. I think that would be really, really helpful, would allow people to feel like they can make some adjustments and, get their guild more rewards. Now, one thing I didn't cover when I talked about, I kind of mentioned GAC and I'd said TW, but I'd like to talk about territory war matchmaking in particular. My guild, among many others, is resorting to the sandbagging method. Hey, we're going to purposefully lower our GP, and that way we can get a more favorable matchup. I can actually say that we haven't really got a super cupcake match in a little bit, which, has been good, but like the potential is there. However, I think they need to do something in territory wars to take into account a guild's record or their overall GP. That like we are 703 million galactic power. If we join with 550, do not pair us up with a guild that's 550 million. That is a mismatch, and they're going to lose because they're not going to have the firepower to beat us. Like, we should not be getting paired up with them. So taking into account maybe a guild's win-loss, kind of like Grand Arena does, and increasing rewards for higher skilled guilds, I think would be a lot more beneficial for the game, would encourage more interaction with territory war than what we're getting right now. I'd also maybe say tweaking the rewards a bit, but I get hesitant with that because, again, if you tweak the rewards in territory war, we've then got to tweak the rewards in Grand Arena. Finally, finishing on just Conquest in general, we will have our first Conquest with Relic Delta. I'm not sure how that will go. I have some major concerns around that we'll talk about in a whole other video, but just the kind of TLDR is, depending on the feats, this could be really challenging for us. And I really hope that they've thought about how to ensure that Relic Delta does not get in, because you got to think it's going to impact us in two ways. Either one, you have these high relic characters, like let's say you're trying to do, gain advantage a certain number of times in Sector 1. Well, I might need to do more battles than necessary because my first order team is, made up of a bunch of relic 8s, and I'm going to be having a massive delta. And the flip side of that could be, win X amount of battles with Bad Batch. Well, my Bad Batch are Relic 5. If they put that in the Relic 8 tier, that could be much more challenging. So I'm a little bit hesitant with this because I do think it will, that it's not just the players who don't, the players who don't have the stuff are already screwed anyways, right? But even to players who've invested in their rosters, you could potentially be getting punished by Relic Delta in this coming Conquest. So overall, I think there's some very good positives in the game, and there's some negatives. I think the positives is that they have tried to make the game more accessible to early players, and I think they are investing. They're putting things in. There's new stuff coming. There's new content coming, and that's the kind of thing that you want to see from a game like this. I just think there's some overall housekeeping items in certain areas that by kind of paying attention to those, the game would be a lot more successful, and you'd get more players wanting to spend money in the game rather than feeling like they have to. Because when players want to do something, they'll do it more often. So I really want to see this game succeed, and I think 2026 has the potential to be really good for this game. barring CG makes some adjustments in some of those areas to, okay, we've learned from this, here's how we're going to move forward. Because I think if the game continues in some of the ways that it is, we will continue to see players leave the game because they feel like it's stagnating, or that they're just being squeezed out of the game by not being able to spend enough or spend it all, and that the competitive nature of the game is kind of getting replaced by swipe your credit card and enter those 3 digits. That's my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you next one. Cheers, my friends.